Welcome to today's reading from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter number 9, verse number 49 onwards. We would be continuing today. Mukam karoti vacharam, pangum langate girim, yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Dintarinam Paramanandamadavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Hari Om Tasva. Let's invoke God's presence. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Verse number 49. Tarka Pradhana Bodha Shastra Navamate Tarkai Khandila Prabhu Na Pare Sthapite. The scriptures of the Buddhist cult are chiefly based on argument and logic, and they contain 9 chief principles. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu defeated the Buddhists in their argument, they could not establish their cult. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that according to the Buddhist cult, there are 2 ways of understanding philosophy. One is called Hinayan and the other is called Mahāyan. Along the Buddhist path, there are 9 principles. First, the creation is eternal, therefore there is no need to accept a creator. Second, this cosmic manifestation is false. Third, I am the truth. Fourth, there is repetition of birth and death. Fifth, Lord Buddha is the only source of understanding the truth. Number 6, the principle of nirvana or annihilation is the ultimate goal. Number 7, the philosophy of Buddha is the only philosophical path. Number 8, the Vedas are compiled by human beings. And number 9, pious activities showing mercy to others and so on are advised. No one can attain the absolute truth by argument. One may be very expert in logic and another person may be even more expert in the art of argument. Because there is so much word jugglery in logic, one can never come to the real conclusion about the absolute truth by the argument. The followers of the Vedic principles understand this. However, it is seen here that Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu defeated the Buddhist philosophy by argument. Those who are preachers in ISKCON will certainly meet many people who believe in intellectual arguments. Most of these people do not believe in the authority of the Vedas. Nevertheless, they accept intellectual speculation and argument. Therefore, the preachers of Krishna consciousness should be prepared to defeat others by argument, just as Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu did. In this verse, it is clearly said, Tarkai Khandila Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahāprabhu put forward such a strong argument that the Buddhists could not counter him to establish their cult. Their first principle is that the creation has always existed, but if this were the case, there would be no theory of annihilation. The Buddhists maintain that annihilation or dissolution is the highest truth. If the creation eternally exists, there is no question of dissolution or annihilation. This argument is not very strong because by practical experience we see that the material things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The ultimate aim of the Buddhist philosophy is to dissolve the body. This is proposed because the body has a beginning. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation is a gigantic body, but if we accept that it always exists, there can be no question of annihilation. Therefore, the attempt to annihilate everything in order to attain zero is an absurdity. By our own practical experience, we have to accept the beginning of creation, and when we accept the beginning, we must accept a creator. Such a creator must possess an all-pervasive body as pointed out in the Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 13, verse number 14. Sarvataha pani padam tat, sarvato akshi kshiro mukham, sarvataha shruti mal loke sarvam avritya tishtati. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everywhere, in everything. The Supreme Person must be present everywhere. His body existed before the creation, otherwise he could not be the creator. If the Supreme Person is a created being, there can be no question of a creator. The conclusion is that the cosmic manifestation is certainly created at a certain time and the creator existed before the creation. Therefore, the creator is not a created being. The creator is Parabrahman or the Supreme Spirit. Matter is not only subordinate to the spirit but is actually created on the basis of spirit. When the spirit soul enters the womb of a mother, the body is created by material ingredients supplied by the mother. Everything is created in the material world, and consequently there must be a creator who is the supreme spirit and who is distinct from matter. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita that the material energy is inferior and the spiritual energy is the living entity. Both inferior and superior energies belong to the Supreme Person. The Buddhists argue that the world is false, but this is not valid. The world is temporary, but it is not false. As long as we have the body, we must suffer the pleasures and pains of the body, even though we are not in the body. We may not take these pleasures and pains very seriously, but they are factual nonetheless. We cannot actually say that they are false. If the bodily pains and pleasures were false, the creation would be false also, and consequently, no one would take very much interest in it. The conclusion is that the material creation is not false or imaginary, but it is temporary. The Buddhists maintain that the principle I am is this ultimate truth, but this excludes the individuality of I and you. If there is no I and you or individuality, there is no possibility of argument. The Buddhist philosophy depends on argument, and there can be no argument if one simply depends on I am. There must be a you or another person also. The philosophy of duality, the existence of the individual soul and the super soul, must be there. This is confirmed in the second chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita 2.12, wherein the Lord says, Natva evaham jatu nasham natvam neme janadhipaha nachaiv na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atah param. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. We existed in the past in different bodies, and after the annihilation of the body, we shall exist in another body. The principle of the soul is eternal, and it exists in this body or in another body. Even in this lifetime, we experience existence in a child's body, a youth's body, a man's body, and an old body. After annihilation of the body, we acquire another body. The Buddhist cult also accepts the philosophy of transmigration, but the Buddhists do not properly explain the next birth. There are 8.4 million species of life, and our next birth may be in any one of them. Therefore, this human body is not guaranteed. You can see this. The purport of this verse is quite long because it's explaining us about the Buddhist beliefs. According to the Buddhist fifth principle, Lord Buddha is the only source for the attainment of knowledge. We cannot accept this, for Lord Buddha rejected the principles of Vedic knowledge. One must accept the principle of standard knowledge because one cannot attain the absolute truth simply by intellectual speculation. If everyone is an authority, or if everyone accepts his own intelligence as the ultimate criterion, as is presently fashionable, the scriptures will be interpreted in many different ways, and everyone will claim that his own philosophy is supreme. This has become a very great problem, and everyone is interpreting scripture in his own way and setting up his own basis of authority. Yat mata tat patha. Now everybody and anybody is trying to establish his own theory as the ultimate truth. The Buddhists theorize that annihilation or nirvana is the ultimate goal. Annihilation applies to the body, but the spirit soul transmigrates from one body to another. If this were not the case, how can so many multifarious bodies come into existence? If the next birth is a fact, the next bodily form is also a fact. As soon as we accept a material body, we must accept the fact that the body will be annihilated and that we will have to accept another body. If all material bodies are doomed to annihilation, we must obtain a non-material body or a spiritual body if we wish the next birth to be anything but false. How the spiritual body is attained is explained by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjun. This is the highest perfection, to give up one's material body and not accept another, but to return home back to Godhead. It is not that perfection means one's existence becomes void or zero. Existence continues. But if we positively want to annihilate the material body, we have to accept a spiritual body. Otherwise, there can be no eternality for the soul. We cannot accept the theory that the Buddhist philosophy is the only way, for there are so many defects in that philosophy. A perfect philosophy is the one that has no defects, and that is Vedanta philosophy. No one can point out any defects in Vedanta philosophy, and therefore we can conclude that Vedanta is a supreme philosophical way of understanding the truth. According to the Buddhist cult, the Vedas are compiled by ordinary human beings. If this were the case, they would not be authoritative. From the Vedic literatures, we understand that shortly after the creation, Lord Brahma was instructed in the Vedas. It is not that the Vedas were created by Brahma. Although Brahma is the original person in the universe, if Brahma did not create the Vedas, but he is acknowledged as the first created being, where from did Vedic knowledge come to Brahma? Obviously, the Vedas did not come from an ordinary person born in this material world. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Rida Ya Adi Kavaye, after the creation, the Supreme Person imparted Vedic knowledge within the heart of Brahma. There was no person in the beginning of the creation other than Brahma. Yet he did not compile the Vedas. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Vedas were not compiled by any created being. Vedic knowledge was given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead who created this material world. This is also accepted by Shankaracharya, although he is not a Vaishnav. It is stated that mercy is one of the qualities of a Buddhist, but mercy is a relative thing. We show our mercy to a subordinate or to one who is suffering more than ourselves. However, if there is a superior person present, the superior person cannot be object of our mercy. Rather, we are object for the mercy of the superior person. Therefore, showing compassion and mercy is a relative activity. It is not the absolute truth. Apart from this, we also must know that what actual mercy is. To give a sick man something forbidden for him to eat is not mercy. Rather, it is cruelty. Unless we know what mercy really is, we may create an undesirable situation. If we wish to show real mercy, we will preach Krishna consciousness in order to revive the lost consciousness of human beings, the living entity's original consciousness. Since the Buddhist philosophy does not admit the existence of the spirit soul, the so-called mercy of the Buddhists is defective. But the wonderful thing is that it was the Lord himself who came as the avatar of Buddha. So he was actually trying to deliver what was needed in that particular juncture of time. And also in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that everybody has their own theory of explaining the things, of explaining the absolute, and everybody thinks they're right. And we can see that in our present age, we have got social media, we have got YouTube, we've got the search engines where people put all kinds of stuff, but we have to have some kind of authority from where that knowledge is coming. So our spiritual master has to be the one who is coming in a line of disciplic succession, which starts right from Lord Krishna himself. So we have to be very careful, like we are careful what to buy, to eat, what to wear, where to go, and how to spend our time. So similarly, we should be very, very careful who and how and where from we are getting the knowledge about the Lord. Verse number 50. Bodhacharya Nava Prashna Sabha Uthaila Drida Yukti Tarke Prabhu Khanda Khanda Kaila. The teacher of the Buddhist cult set forth the 9 principles, but the Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu broke them to pieces with his strong logic. Verse number 51. Darshanika Pandita Sabaye Paila Parajay Loke Hasya Kare Bodha Paila Lajja Bhaya. All mental speculators and learned scholars were defeated by Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu when the people began to laugh. The Buddhist philosophers felt both shame and fear. These philosophers, this is the purport now, were all atheists, for they did not believe in the existence of God. Atheists may be very expert in mental speculation and may be so-called great philosophers, but they can be defeated by a Vaishnava firmly situated in his conviction and God consciousness. Following in the footsteps of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, all the preachers engaged in the service of ISKCON should be very expert in putting forward strong arguments and defeating all types of atheists. Because after all, you represent your representatives of your guru, of your spiritual master, and the acharyas, the gurus before your guru, which is going right back to the Lord himself. So you cannot give any helter-skelter preaching. It has to be bona fide, it has to be genuine, and it should be coming from the scriptures whose source is the Lord himself. Verse number 52. Prabhu ke Vaishnav jani bodha ghare gela sakala bodha mili tabe kumantrana kaila. The Buddhists could understand that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a Vaishnav and they returned home very unhappy. Later, however, they began a plot against the Lord. Verse 53. Apavitra anna eka thalite bhariya Prabhu age nila Mahaprasad baliya. Having made the plot, the Buddhists brought a plate of untouchable food before Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and called it Mahaprasadam. Purport. The word apavitra anna refers to food that is unacceptable for a Vaishnav. In other words, a Vaishnav cannot accept any food offered by a Vaishnav in the name of Mahaprasadam. This should be a principle for all Vaishnavas. When asked what is the behavior of Vaishnav, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, a Vaishnav must avoid the company of a Vaishnav or an Asat. The word Asat refers to an Vaishnav, that is one who is not Vaishnav. Asat Sanga Tyaga, a Vaishnav Achar. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 87, which we will be reading a bit later on. A Vaishnav must be very strict in this respect and should not at all cooperate with an Vaishnav. If an Vaishnav offers food in the name of Mahaprasadam, it should not be accepted. Such food cannot be prasadam because an Vaishnav cannot offer anything to the Lord. Sometimes preachers in the Krishna consciousness movement have to accept food in a home where the householder is an Vaishnav. However, if this food is offered to the deity, it can be taken. Ordinary food cooked by an Vaishnav should not be accepted by a Vaishnav, even if an Vaishnav cooks food without fault. He cannot offer it to Lord Vishnu and it cannot be accepted as Mahaprasadam according to Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita 9.26. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tad aham bhaktya uparitam ashnami prayatatmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit or water, I will accept it. Krishna can accept anything offered by his devotee with devotion. A Vaishnav may be a vegetarian and a very clean cook, but because he cannot offer Vishnu the food he cooks, it cannot be accepted as Mahaprasadam. It is said that a Vaishnav abandons such food as untouchable. Verse number 54. Hena kale mahakaya eka pakshi aila thonte kari anna saha thali lena gela. When a contaminated food was offered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a very large bird appeared on the spot, picked up the plate in its beak and flew away. So this is also a lila of the Lord. So thonte kari means by the beak in Bengali. Verse 55. Bodha ganera upare anna pade amedhya haya bodha charyera mathaya thali padila bajia. Indeed, the untouchable food fell upon the Buddhist and the large bird dropped the plate on the head of the chief Buddhist teacher and it fell on his head. It made a big sound. So like in Hindi we say bajaya, in Bengali they say bajia, balia. To speak they say balia. Verse number 56. Terache padila thali matha kati gela Murchit hena acharya bhumite padila. The plate was made of metal and when its edge hit the head of the teacher, it cut him and the teacher immediately fell to the ground unconscious. Verse 57. Hahakar kari kande sab shishya gana sabe asi prabhur pade lale laila sharana. When the teacher fell unconscious, his Buddhist disciples cried aloud and ran to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for shelter. Verse 58. Tumita Ishvara Sakshat Kshama Aparadha Jiyao Amar Guru Karah Prasad. They all prayed to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, addressing him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself and saying, "Sir, please excuse our offense, please have mercy upon us and bring our spiritual master back to life." Verse number 59. Prabhu kahe sabe kaha Krishna Krishna Hari, Guru karne kaha Krishna naam uchcha kari. The Lord then replied to the Buddhist disciples, "You should all chant the names of Krishna and Hari very loudly near the ear of your spiritual master." So, Lord is therefore only one business, to give the holy name to everyone. And any opportunity is not wasted, so we should also make sure that we follow in the lotus footsteps of Lord. Verse number 60. Toma sabar guru tabe paibe chetana sab bodha mili kare Krishna sankirtana. By this method, your spiritual master will regain his consciousness. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advice, all the Buddhist disciples began to chant the holy name of Krishna congregationally. So let's move to the last verse for the day, verse number 61. Guru karane kahe sabe Krishna Rama Hari Chetana Pana Acharya Bale Hari Hari. When all the disciples chanted the names of Krishna, Rama and Hari, the Buddhist teacher regained consciousness and immediately began to chant the holy name of Lord Hari. Purport Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that all the Buddhist disciples were actually initiated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. And when they chanted, they actually became different persons. At the time, they were not Buddhists nor atheists but Vaishnavas. Consequently, they immediately accepted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order. Their original Krishna consciousness was revived and they were immediately able to chant Hare Krishna and begin worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu. It is the spiritual master who delivers the disciple from the clutches of Maya by initiating him into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. In this way, a sleeping human being can revive his consciousness by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In other words, the spiritual master awakens the sleeping living entity to his original consciousness so that he can worship Lord Vishnu. This is the purpose of Diksha or initiation. Initiation means receiving the pure knowledge of spiritual consciousness. One point to note in this regard is that the spiritual master of the Buddhists did not initiate the disciples, rather his disciples were initiated by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they in turn were able to initiate their so-called spiritual master. This is the parampara system. The so-called spiritual master of the Buddhists was actually in the position of a disciple, and after his disciples were initiated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they acted as his spiritual masters. This was possible only because the disciples of the Buddhist Acharya received the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unless one is favored by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the disciplic succession, one cannot act as a spiritual master. We should take the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the spiritual master of the whole universe, to understand how one becomes a spiritual master and a disciple. So in this purport, verse number 61 of the 9th chapter, Srila Prabhupada has so beautifully explained the relationship of a spiritual master and disciple and how one can become a spiritual master. The mercy can come to a fallen person before a so-called refined person who is looking to us like a very refined, knowledgeable person. But we might see sometimes in our life, or we might read about such a person, that a fallen person got the mercy before the one who was looking like a very suitable, ripe candidate. So mercy can come in so many different forms. So thank you for joining, and we will continue reading next time from verse number 62. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Kapur. And I wish you all a blissful weekend. Hare Krishna.